The HOA treasurer left her $60,000 BMW in my garage without permission, then issued me a $200 fine for keeping my garage door open all night. After working a 12-hour shift as an electrician, I returned home exhausted to discover her white luxury vehicle occupying the center of my workspace. The scent of expensive leather mingled with engine oil as her car alarm blared. When I requested she relocate, she referenced fabricated emergency parking regulations and lectured me about neighborhood solidarity. 6 weeks afterward, I became the owner of her property, and she left tearful messages begging me to halt the foreclosure as neighbors looked on. However, before I explain how her unlawful power play led to her financial ruin, let me ask, has someone in a minor position of authority trampled over you simply because they had the power to do so? Comment your location below. I'm curious how many of us have had enough of being dominated. That I'm Jake Morrison, and buying my first home in Willowbrook Estates 2 years ago felt like winning the lottery. As a 34-year-old electrician and single father to Emma, my 8-year-old who visits every other weekend, I'd saved every overtime dollar for 6 years. I lived on ramen as if it were gourmet food, all for a modest 3-bedroom property with the real treasure, a 2-car garage I could transform into my personal workshop. That garage was my refuge. The aroma of sawdust combined with copper wiring, my grandfather's worn workbench holding tools that helped build this nation, and enough room to construct Emma's treehouse without neighbors scrutinizing my property boundaries. I'd also recently received a small inheritance from Grandpa, finally providing funds for genuine home upgrades rather than just fantasizing about them. The garage door opener produced this pleasant mechanical sound when it sealed shut each night, separating my personal space from the suburban drama beyond. Willowbrook appeared ideal. Middle-income residences constructed between 2015 and 2018, young families and retired folks, $180 per month for the HOA covering basic maintenance. Straightforward regulations, I assumed. Maintain your lawn, avoid painting your house fluorescent colors, work diligently, and stay out of others' affairs. Then Brenda Whitfield entered my life, and I discovered that straightforward was never in her dictionary. That Brenda's 52 years old, operates that $160,000 BMW like it's a combat vehicle, resides in the corner McMansion with the circular drive that screams, "Submit to my authority." She holds the HOA treasurer position, which seemingly means absolute dictator of suburban excellence. Her spouse Brad has a city planning job, a detail she weaponizes in every discussion like verbal warfare. Imagine this: perpetually styled hair, designer everything, with a smile that could make frozen tundra seem warm in comparison. The type of person who measures your lawn height while pretending to walk her designer handbag. Dog. On my initial Brenda interaction occurred 6 months after I moved in. I was installing security lights for Mrs. Chun, an elderly neighbor, helping her feel safer after recent burglaries in the area. Suddenly, there's this shadow casting over my project. The sharp sound of costly heels on pavement, overwhelming perfume cloud that likely cost more than my vehicle payment. Excuse me. She gripped a clipboard like holy text, but I don't observe permits displayed for this electrical work. I clarified that outdoor lighting doesn't require permits, displayed my state license, offered to review safety regulations. Her reply: "I'll need to confirm that with my husband. We simply can't allow questionable contractors jeopardizing our property values." The manner in which she said questionable contractors, as if my 12 years of licensed expertise and work-hardened hands were worthless because I operated a work truck rather than leasing German luxury vehicles. That bitter metallic sensation of being dismissed was my official introduction to Brenda's neighborhood. Over 18 months, she elevated suburban monitoring into theatrical performance. Early morning patrols with her violation ledger documenting infractions like children's bicycles in driveways or garbage bins collected 11 minutes behind schedule. The woman transformed HOA enforcement into her personal mission against anyone who genuinely worked for their living. But her particular treatment was saved for residents who didn't fit her neighborhood vision. Mrs. Chun received citations for aesthetically unsuitable decorations, her deceased veteran husband's memorial wind chimes. Tom Rodriguez encountered fines for parking his work vehicle in his own driveway because commercial vehicles diminish residential character. The click of Brenda's heels became our neighborhood advance warning system. Children dispersed like frightened birds. Window curtains twitched anxiously. Everyone held their breath hoping she'd continue past without stopping to measure something with her small ruler. Emma, with that brutally honest 8-year-old candor, once questioned why the mean attractive lady always appears like she detected something unpleasant out of the mouths of children. Indeed, I stayed beneath her notice, mostly adhering to every minuscule rule, trimming grass to exactly 2.75 inches, parking my work vehicle on the street to avoid providing her ammunition. But that Tuesday night, when I arrived home drained from a 12-hour shift, I found that Brenda had apparently decided my garage was community property. That Tuesday night, I arrived in my driveway at 7:30 p.m. after installing emergency backup power for a medical facility. One of those assignments where lives genuinely depend on your work being flawless. My steel-toed boots felt like concrete blocks. My tool belt had created permanent impressions in my shoulders, and all I desired was to grab a beer and examine the treehouse project I'd been constructing for Emma. Instead, I discovered Brenda Whitfield's pearl-white BMW X5 positioned dead center in my garage as if she owned it. Not partially obstructing, not squeezed to one side. Dead center with perhaps 6 inches clearance on each side, positioned so precisely that opening her doors would damage my workbench. The scent of her vehicle's leather interior combined with my motor oil and sawdust, creating this strange collision of luxury and honest labor that upset my stomach that I stood there for a complete 30 seconds, garage remote in my hand, questioning if I was experiencing some kind of exhaustion-triggered hallucination. The car alarm beeped once, that smug little electronic noise that declared, "I belong here, and you don't." I walked around to my front entrance where I discovered Brenda herself occupying one of my patio chairs, as if she were conducting a neighborhood committee meeting. She was immaculately dressed despite the humid August evening, scrolling through her phone with the casual disregard of someone who'd never questioned her entitlement to occupy any space she selected. "Excuse me," I said, maintaining a level voice, "but there's a vehicle in my garage." She glanced up with that rehearsed smile. "Oh, Jake, my driveway is being sealed tomorrow morning. Emergency circumstances, and the HOA emergency parking provision allows temporary use of available spaces during community maintenance." I retrieved my phone and scrolled through the HOA documents while she observed with amusement, as if I were a child attempting to read an adult book. "Ma'am, I don't locate any emergency parking provisions in here." "Well," she rose, smoothing her skirt, "I'm currently reviewing the bylaws for necessary amendments. Consider this a trial program for community cooperation during infrastructure enhancements. Here's where most individuals would have lost their composure and done something foolish. But 12 years of electrical work instills patience. One incorrect move and you're deceased. So rather than exploding, I did something clearly not in Brenda's playbook. I retrieved my phone and began recording. "So to clarify," I said calmly, "you're acknowledging that this emergency parking provision doesn't actually exist currently, and you're utilizing my private garage as a test case without my consent." Her expression transitioned from smug to panicked in approximately 2 seconds. "You can't record me without consent." "Actually, I can. We're on my property, and this is a one-party consent state. Knowledge nugget asterisk in most states. You can legally record conversations on your own property without the other party's permission. Essential for documenting harassment. Takeaway asterisk, always verify your state's recording laws before dealing with aggressive neighbors." She attempted to grab my phone, but I stepped back. "Brad will hear about this." "Good. I'd love to hear the city planning department's official stance on fabricated HOA provisions." But Brenda wasn't finished. The following morning, I discovered an official HOA violation notice attached to my front door. Failure to maintain community standards. Garage left open overnight, creating visual blight. Fine, $75, escalating to $200 if not resolved within 48 hours. There was a handwritten note attached. "Maybe next time you'll be more cooperative." B. I contacted my friend Derek, college roommate turned real estate lawyer, while staring at the notice. "Jake," Derek laughed after I read it to him, "she just handed you a gift. She's literally fining you for the violation she caused. That's evidence of harassment and abuse of HOA authority. So what's my next move?" Research time. HOA formation documents are public record at the county office. Discover what authority they actually possess versus what they claim to have. During my lunch break, I drove to the county courthouse. The flavor of institutional coffee combined with the musty scent of old filing cabinets as I searched through incorporation papers. What I discovered made me smile for the first time since this began. Meanwhile, Brenda was occupied. I returned home to find she'd emailed the entire neighborhood. Urgent community notice. Resident violation creating security concerns due to unsecured garage overnight. Board reviewing enhanced enforcement procedures. Emma contacted me that evening, enthusiastic about her upcoming weekend visit. Daddy, is my treehouse going to be ready? We might have to work around some obstacles, sweetheart. Is the mean lady being mean again? Yeah, baby. But Daddy's learning how to be mean back the right way. What Emma didn't realize was that my county research had revealed something Brenda definitely didn't want the neighborhood discovering. Friday morning struck me with a new level of audacity that even I hadn't anticipated from Brenda. Not only was her BMW still occupying my garage like some luxury parasite, but she'd brought a companion, a sleek black Mercedes sedan now sitting beside it, consuming every inch of space where my tools used to be. I discovered my electrical supply cabinet, the one containing $3,000 worth of equipment, pushed against the rear wall with a brand new padlock where my lock used to be. My tools were scattered across my workbench as if someone had been rummaging through a junk drawer. And there was a sticky note on my grandfather's old vise. Temporary relocation for client staging. Community cooperation appreciated. BW. The metallic taste of pure rage filled my mouth, combined with the sharp scent of expensive car leather and whatever fancy perfume she'd sprayed around my workspace, as if she was marking her territory. Instead of doing what every fiber of my being desired, which involved those bolt cutters hanging on my garage wall, I did something that would hurt Brenda more than any tool could. I contacted the non-emergency police line. Hi, I'd like to report a trespassing situation and possible theft of personal property. Officer Martinez arrived 20 minutes later, a solid individual who appeared like he handled plenty of suburban drama. After documenting everything with photographs, he said something that made my day. Sir, this appears like harassment to me. Mind if I have a conversation with the vehicle owner? Observing Brenda attempt to explain to a police officer why she had the right to lock up someone else's tools in their own garage was like watching a masterclass in how not to talk to law enforcement. Her voice elevated with each excuse. Her hands fluttered like confused birds, and Officer Martinez's expression grew more skeptical by the minute. The sound of his pen clicking as he took notes was like a countdown timer to Brenda's credibility evaporating. Ma'am, he finally said, property deed supersedes HOA agreement every time. You might want to remove your vehicles before this becomes a criminal matter. That afternoon, I drove to the county surveyor's office with a mission. I recalled Derek mentioning once during our college days that property deeds always supersede HOA plat maps in legal disputes. The deed describes exactly what you own, while HOA maps are often based on preliminary surveys that don't reflect final construction. Your deed is the ultimate legal authority over your property, not what any HOA claims on their maps. The clerk, a helpful woman named Janet who'd clearly witnessed her share of property disputes, pulled up my lot survey with the enthusiasm of someone about to deliver Christmas morning news. Oh, honey, she said, pointing at the screen. You own 18 inches more toward the street than your HOA thinks you do. See this line here? That's your actual boundary. Your garage is completely on your own property. The original developer had sold me the property with clear title to the entire garage footprint, but the HOA's formation documents used an outdated preliminary survey that was legally worthless. I walked out of that office feeling like I just found the cheat code to Brenda's game. By Saturday, Brenda had escalated to full neighborhood social media warfare. She called an emergency HOA board meeting for Monday night with a notice that looked more like a court summons. Urgent property boundary dispute requiring immediate resolution. She also launched a Facebook campaign that would make political operatives jealous. Her post about some residents who prioritize vacation over community safety got shared to 3 neighborhood groups, but her strategy backfired spectacularly. Mrs. Chin commented with a detailed account of Brenda's harassment campaign. Tom Rodriguez shared photos of his own bogus violation notices. Sarah Mitchell posted a screenshot of the actual HOA bylaws. proving most of Brenda's rules existed only in her imagination. My personal favorite comment came from Janet Martinez, Officer Martinez's wife, as it turned out. Funny how some people think badges give them the right to other people's property. Faced with rolling eyes, Sunday morning brought Brenda's most desperate move yet. I woke up to find a city towing notice stuck to my work van. Apparently, it violated commercial vehicle restrictions and would be towed Thursday morning. The beautiful irony: my van was parked legally on a public street where I'd specifically put it to avoid any HOA issues. But Brenda's husband Brad had pulled strings at city planning to manufacture a violation that didn't exist. Emma called that evening, practically bouncing through the phone with excitement. "Daddy, can we work on my tree house this weekend?" "Absolutely, sweetheart. And I think we might build it even bigger than we originally planned." "How come?" "Because Daddy learned something very interesting about our backyard. Turns out we own more of it than some people think we do." What I didn't tell Emma was that her innocent treehouse project was about to become the perfect demonstration of exactly where my property lines really were, and who actually had the legal right to be there. Monday evening arrived with all the drama of a neighborhood soap opera. I walked into the Willowbrook Elementary cafeteria for the emergency HOA meeting to find only 3 people sitting at a folding table that looked like it had been borrowed from a church basement sale. Brenda sat in the center wearing a navy blazer that screamed, "I'm in charge here." Flanking her were 2 board allies I'd never actually seen before. Harold something or other, a retiree who nodded at everything Brenda said like a dashboard bobblehead, and Patricia whoever, a woman who looked like she'd been professionally trained to purse her lips in disapproval. The cafeteria still smelled like today's lunch special, that unmistakable aroma of institutional mac and cheese mixed with industrial floor cleaner. It was about to smell a lot worse for Brenda. "Where's everyone else?" I asked, pulling out my phone to start recording. "The other board members couldn't make it tonight," Brenda said with that practiced smile. "But we have a quorum, so we can proceed with essential business." I sat down in one of those tiny plastic chairs designed for second graders, my knees practically touching my chin. The sound of the chair creaking under my weight echoed through the empty cafeteria like a warning shot. "First order of business," she announced. "Motion to clarify parking enforcement procedures in light of recent noncompliance issues." She slid a typed document across the table, 3 pages of legal-sounding nonsense that basically said the HOA could fine anyone for anything related to vehicular storage creating visual disruption to community standards. The motion included retroactive fines for unauthorized garage usage patterns dating back 60 days for $800. "You're trying to fine me $800 for how I use my own garage?" I asked. "Community standards affect all property values," Harold bobbled enthusiastically. That's when I remembered something Derek had drilled into me during our college study sessions. Most HOA boards never file proper insurance for the powers they claim to have. Without insurance, individual board members become personally liable for any damages their decisions cause. Your insurance policy is your legal shield, but only if it actually covers what you're doing. "I'd like to see the HOA incorporation documents," I said. "And your insurance policy covering these enforcement powers." The silence that followed was so thick you could have carved it like Thanksgiving turkey. Patricia's lips pursed tighter, Brenda's smile faltered, and Harold stopped bobbling entirely. The fluorescent lights above us hummed like angry hornets trapped in a jar. "Those documents are being reviewed by our legal counsel," Brenda finally managed. "No problem," I said, pulling out the papers I brought. "I've got copies right here from the county filing office." I spread out the HOA incorporation documents and insurance policy on the tiny table. Brenda's face went from confident pink to worried pale in about 3 seconds. "According to your insurance policy," I continued, "the HOA specifically excludes coverage for board members' personal business activities, like using community resources for real estate staging. Furthermore," I said, opening another folder, "I've documented $23,000 in financial discrepancies over the past 18 months." The pattern was beautiful in its criminal simplicity. Storm cleanup billed to the HOA but performed by city crews for free. Landscape consultations charged to community funds but done through Brenda's private company. Emergency tree removal that cost us $8,400 for trees the city had removed at no charge. But here's what I hadn't expected to find: the real twist that made my electrician's heart sing. Mrs. Whitfield, I said, pulling out one final document. Did you know your husband's city planning emails are subject to public records requests? The color drained from her face faster than water down a broken drain that I read from Brad's official email. Problem properties requiring community pressure to improve neighborhood composition. Target working-class homeowners for maximum leverage. Harold's mouth fell open like a broken garage door. Patricia actually gasped, and Brenda looked like someone had just told her the FBI was outside. That's taken out of context, she whispered. There's more, I said. Wife staging business needs 3-month access cycles. Recommend escalating HOA pressure on Morrison property for optimal client presentation timeline. The taste of victory was better than my grandfather's homemade apple pie, sweet with just a hint of justice. This meeting is over, Brenda said, standing so fast her chair fell backward with a metallic crash that echoed through the empty cafeteria. But as I walked to my car, I had no idea that Brenda's desperation was about to reach levels that would make tonight's revelations look like a friendly neighborhood chat. The next morning brought a phone call that changed everything. Jake, you need to sit down for this, Derek said. His voice had that tone lawyers get when they've found something that could either make you rich or land someone in federal prison. That I was in my kitchen staring at my coffee maker, wondering if Brenda's BMW was still squatting in my garage. Spoiler alert, it was. Remember how I said I'd dig deeper into Brenda's business dealings? Derek continued. Well, I found the smoking gun. Actually, I found the whole arsenal. He'd spent the night running Brenda's real estate license through the state database, cross-referencing her HOA financial activities with public records. What he discovered made my electrical violations look like parking tickets. First, Derek said, Brenda's real estate license has 2 pending complaints for misrepresentation, both from elderly clients who claim she manipulated them into selling below market value. The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling my kitchen with the rich aroma of caffeine salvation. I was going to need it. Second, her property records show she owes $180,000 more on her mortgage than her house is currently worth. She's underwater financially and drowning fast. But the real bombshell was still coming. Third, and this is the big one, Brad's city position is under official ethics review for undisclosed conflicts of interest related to HOA enforcement activities. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. The smooth ceramic surface suddenly felt slippery in my calloused hands. Someone filed a complaint with the state attorney general's office, Derek continued, about systematic corruption in municipal planning departments working with private HOA boards to manipulate property values. The investigation has been quietly running for 6 months. Brad's email trail was just the evidence they needed to prove coordination between city planning and private real estate interests using HOA harassment to force property sales. Derek, I said, are you telling me that Brenda and Brad are part of some kind of organized scheme? I'm telling you that your little garage situation just became Exhibit A in a federal fraud investigation. The implications hit me like a surge through an ungrounded electrical line. Brenda wasn't just a power-hungry neighbor with control issues. She was running a sophisticated property manipulation scheme, using her HOA position to identify target homeowners, creating artificial violation pressure to force quick sales below market value, then flipping those properties through her real estate business for massive profits. How many other homeowners? I asked. At least 12 in your neighborhood alone. Probably dozens across the county. Derek explained how the scheme worked. Brad would identify properties in his city planning role that were ripe for development or resale. Brenda would manufacture HOA violations to pressure those specific homeowners into selling. Their combined inside knowledge of zoning changes and development plans made them incredibly effective at targeting the right properties at the right time. Mrs. Chen's memorial wind chimes weren't just annoying to Brenda's aesthetic sense. They were an excuse to pressure an elderly widow into selling her house 6 months before the city announced plans for a new community center that would boost property values by 30%. Tom Rodriguez's work truck wasn't really a community eyesore. It was parked on a lot that Brad knew would be rezoned for mixed-use development within 2 years. An MY garage wasn't just convenient parking for Brenda's staging business. My property sat on a corner lot that would become extremely valuable when the new shopping center got approved next spring. The beautiful part, Derek said with the satisfaction of a prosecutor who just cracked a major case, is that they documented everything. Brad's emails, Brenda's violation records, even invoices showing her staging company billing clients for access to property she obtained through HOA pressure. So what happens now? Now? Now you have more power in this situation than Brenda could have ever imagined. She's not just facing HOA accountability anymore. She's looking at federal fraud charges, conspiracy, and civil rights violations. I hung up the phone and walked out to my garage, where Brenda's BMW still sat like a $40,000 confession letter. But now I understood something that changed my entire strategy. This wasn't about parking. This wasn't about property rights. This was about taking down a criminal enterprise that had been systematically stealing from working families across our entire county. Time to call in some bigger allies. That Derek's revelation changed everything. This wasn't neighborhood drama anymore. This was organized crime disguised as suburban governance. And that meant I needed to think bigger than just getting my garage back. I spent Wednesday afternoon assembling what Derek called Team Justice. Though honestly, it felt more like recruiting for the world's most suburban version of Ocean's 11. First up was Mrs. Chun. I found her in her garden, tending to the memorial flowers she'd planted around her late husband's wind chimes, the ones Brenda had tried to ban as aesthetically inappropriate. Mrs. Chun, I said, how would you feel about helping me expose exactly what Brenda's been doing to this neighborhood? Her weathered hands paused over a rose bush that had been blooming for 40 years. Jake, I've been keeping records since the day that woman showed up at my door with her clipboard. I was hoping someone would eventually ask. She disappeared into her house and returned with a shoebox full of documentation that would make an FBI forensic accountant weep with joy. Every violation notice, every threatening phone call, every time Brenda had photographed her property without permission, all dated, time-stamped, and cross-referenced with neighborhood events. Military training, she explained with a smile that could have powered the neighborhood. My late husband taught me that documentation beats confrontation every time. Next was Tom Rodriguez. I found him in his driveway, working on the engine of that work truck Brenda had tried to get towed. The smell of motor oil and determination filled the evening air. Tom, I need someone with your kind of practical expertise. He looked up from under the hood, wiping his hands on a rag that had seen more honest work than Brenda's BMW. You mean someone who knows how to install security equipment without leaving fingerprints? I mean someone who understands how to document things properly. Tom's grin could have lit up the whole street. Brother, I've been waiting for this conversation since the day she tried to find me for parking my own truck in my own driveway. Over the next hour, Tom explained his background in military intelligence, how he'd been quietly mapping Brenda's patrol patterns, recording her violation schedule, even documenting which houses she photographed and when. Turns out having a combat veteran with surveillance training living 2 streets over was like having a neighborhood guardian angel with a security clearance. Sarah Mitchell joined our impromptu war council when she showed up with her laptop and the kind of organizational skills that come from managing 33rd graders every day. I've been running the neighborhood Facebook group like an intelligence operation, she said, pulling up spreadsheets that would impress a data analyst. Every complaint about Brenda, every suspicious HOA activity, every time someone got a bogus violation notice, all cross-referenced and categorized. Derek arrived Thursday evening with a legal strategy that was beautiful in its simplicity. We were going to let Brenda continue digging her own hole while building an airtight case that would protect every homeowner in the county from similar schemes. First, Derek explained, spreading documents across my kitchen table, we file a formal complaint with the State Real Estate Board about Brenda's license violations using Mrs. Chin's documentation. The complaint would trigger an automatic investigation into Brenda's business practices, including her use of HOA authority to manipulate property sales. Real estate boards take this kind of thing very seriously because it makes their entire industry look corrupt. Second, he continued, we submit Brad's email evidence to the State Attorney General's office. They're already investigating municipal corruption. This gives them everything they need to prove conspiracy. Derek had learned from his prosecutor friends that the key to taking down corruption networks is patience. Let them think they're winning while you build overwhelming evidence. Make them confident enough to keep committing crimes while you're recording everything. Third, we prepare a civil lawsuit under federal civil rights statutes, property deprivation, conspiracy to violate civil rights, pattern of harassment targeting specific demographic groups. The civil rights angle was crucial. Brenda hadn't just been randomly harassing homeowners. She'd been systematically targeting working-class families, elderly residents, and anyone who didn't fit her vision of appropriate neighborhood composition. But the real masterstroke was Derek's final suggestion. "We're going to use your vacation time." I stared at him like he'd suggested I take up professional alligator wrestling. "Think about it," Derek said. "Narcissistic personalities like Brenda need constant control. They can't handle situations they can't manipulate. What happens if you just disappear for a couple weeks?" The plan was elegantly simple. I'd take my accumulated vacation time and go camping with Emma, completely off the grid. No cell service, no internet, no way for Brenda to contact or manipulate me. Meanwhile, Tom would house sit and document every single thing Brenda did. Mrs. Chun would coordinate with other neighbors to record any escalating behavior. Sarah would monitor social media and keep the neighborhood informed. "Without you there to react to," Derek explained, "she'll have to show her true colors to everyone else." Narcissists can't help themselves when they think they're winning. The taste of anticipation was like the first bite of perfectly grilled barbecue. This was going to be satisfying in ways Brenda couldn't even imagine. Emma's weekend visit was coming up, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I was genuinely excited to tell her we were going camping. For 2 weeks of the most strategic relaxation of my life. Day 3 of our Yellowstone camping trip, and I was teaching Emma how to identify animal tracks by the creek when my satellite emergency communicator buzzed with a message from Tom. "She's lost her mind. Call when you can get signal." Emma was building a dam out of smooth river rocks, completely absorbed in her engineering project. The smell of pine needles and mountain air should have been relaxing. Instead, I found myself hiking to higher ground to get cell coverage, wondering what fresh hell Brenda had unleashed on the neighborhood. Tom answered on the first ring. "Jake, brother, this woman is unhinged. Day 1, she tried to get into your garage at 6 a.m. with a crowbar." I sat down on a boulder that had probably been there since the last ice age, watching eagles circle overhead while Tom described Brenda's escalating desperation. Day 2, she called a locksmith, claimed it was an HOA emergency inspection for electrical hazards. Locksmith took one look at her story and left. But here's the good part. I got it all on video. Tom had position cameras to cover every angle of my property, motion activated, infrared capable, uploading to cloud storage that Brenda couldn't tamper with. Military-grade surveillance disguised as standard home security. Day 3. That's today. She brought City Electrical Inspector Frank Morrison, no relation to you, by the way, told him you had dangerous wiring that needed immediate inspection. The beautiful thing about working in the electrical trade for 12 years is that you know every inspector in the county. Frank Morrison was a straight shooter who didn't appreciate being lied to about emergency situations. Frank took one look at her story and asked for the complaint filing number. Tom continued. When she couldn't provide one, he asked who reported the electrical hazard. When she said she did, he asked for her electrical license number. I could picture Brenda's face when she realized she'd just claimed expertise she didn't have to a man who'd been inspecting electrical work since before she got her real estate license. Frank told her that filing false electrical emergency reports was a misdemeanor. Then he left, but not before he gave me his card and said to call if she tried anything else. The mountain air was crisp and clean, carrying the sound of Emma's laughter as she tested her rock dam against the creek current. Meanwhile, 200 miles away, Brenda was apparently having a complete meltdown. But Jake, that's not even the worst part. Tom's voice dropped to that tone military guys use when they're about to describe something truly spectacular. Last night around midnight, she tried to jimmy your garage lock with what looked like a butter knife. I confronted her, and she claimed she heard strange noises and was investigating community safety concerns. Please tell me you recorded that. Brother, I got her on camera attempting breaking and entering while explaining to a Marine veteran how community safety works. It's like watching someone fail a sobriety test while insisting they're the designated driver. Tom had filed a police report for attempted burglary. Officer Martinez took one look at the security footage and recommended that Brenda speak with a lawyer immediately. But her response to getting caught red-handed was even more revealing. She posted on the neighborhood Facebook group at 2 a.m., Tom said, "Some residents think vacation planning is more important than community safety. Dangerous electrical situations require immediate attention regardless of individual convenience. Sarah Mitchell had screenshotted everything before Brenda could delete it. The 2 a.m. timestamp made it clear that she'd posted immediately after getting caught trying to break into my garage. The neighbors are turning against her, Tom continued. Mrs. Patterson from Oak Street commented that maybe people who break into garages at midnight aren't the best judges of community safety. Got 47 likes in 6 hours. Derek had called that morning with updates from the legal front. The State Real Estate Board had fast-tracked their investigation after receiving Mrs. Chin's documentation. Brad's city position was now under active review by the Ethics Committee, and the Attorney General's office was very interested in Brad's email trail. One more thing, Tom said. She tried to bribe me yesterday. That got my full attention. Eagles could circle all they wanted. This was better than any nature documentary. $500 cash, just to let her into your garage for 1 hour to retrieve important staging materials. I told her those staging materials looked suspiciously like your electrical tools. Tom had recorded the entire conversation on his phone, including Brenda's exact words about making my city permit applications much easier if we cooperate. Emma called from the creek, excited about a fish she'd spotted in her rock pool. Her voice echoed off the mountain walls like a reminder of what really mattered: clean air, clear water, and time with people you love. While 200 miles away, a corrupt HOA treasurer was systematically destroying her own life, trying to steal a garage that was never hers to begin with. Tom, I said, keep recording everything. I have a feeling she's just getting started. Day 9 of our camping trip, and Emma had just caught her first fish when my satellite communicator buzzed again. This time it was Sarah's number with an urgent message: emergency. Brenda hired someone to break in. Police involved. Call ASAP. I helped Emma release her rainbow trout back into the crystal-clear mountain stream, watching it dart away toward deeper water. The irony wasn't lost on me that we were practicing catch and release while Brenda was apparently escalating to actual crime. Sarah answered before the first ring finished. Jake, she's completely lost it. Yesterday, she approached Tom with a briefcase full of cash. Today, she hire.